Hi everyone, Jane here. Thank you for watching today, and welcome if you're new, and welcome back if you're a returning viewer. Today I am doing something that was sort of been in my head for a little while, and I really wanted to create this page. Now I've taken a page from my handmade journal. I can't remember what the paper is. It's some sort of watercolor paper in this one, but it's really suited for what I want to do with it. Now, I took this photo here of these leaves whilst I was on holiday recently. We were at a waterfall and I just saw them on the ground, and I thought they looked such a lovely sort of range of colours. So I snapped a picture and then I turned them into a little colour palette for myself. So I'm starting off by using the Kuretake Gansai Tambi Art Nouveau set, and I will list all the colours that I've used down in the description box below so that you can see which ones I've used. I didn't stick exactly to the colours in the colour palette because I use it more as a guide than, something that I really feel like I have to be prescribed to. So I've got my Kuretake paints out, and they are a really lovely thicker sort of watercolour, and I love to just lay them down in a really sort of washy, fun kind of way. So I'm just piling on the water, really, lots and lots of water on here, and I wanted to leave them to sort of do their thing. So I'm holding my brush quite loosely towards the end of it so that I'm not getting too tight with my marks, and I'm making sure I'm putting in plenty of water and just allowing the colours to sort of flow together as they wish. And when I decide that maybe I want a different sort of tone in there, then I'll just add another bit of a different colour. I more or less left this to dry on its own. I have to admit, I did sort of have to dab a little bit off and do a little bit of drying towards the end, but mostly it dried on its own. Now I've picked out some distress ink colours that I want to use with these masks. Now they are leaf masks. They're from a Be Crafty set. I'm not even sure if they're still available, but again, I'll list what I've used in the description box. And I just wanted to add quite a subtle sort of autumnal look with just a little bit of this distress ink around the edges. Now some of the colours, like this first one I put down, I think it was the tea dye, is fairly light, so it didn't overly show. I think you can just about see it, but the idea is that just because by adding that little bit of colour around the leaf, it just emphasises the centre part, that where the mask and excuse me, and where the mask is covered up. So I used, I think it was tea dye, rusty hinge, gathered twigs, wild honey, and bundled sage. I just went sort of for a range of colours that I thought would go with the project. And the little masks are made out of mylar. They're sort of different types of leaves, and I just added them where I wanted to see a little bit of that coming through, and also then sort of layering them over each other where necessary. I really liked how this was looking. I felt it was giving me a nice sort of depth, as if I was looking into a woodland. So I wanted to add a little bit more sort of mistiness into this as well. So I'm using this Be Crafty D'Inkable of circles along with the Amsterdam acrylic paint. I do believe it was titanium buff light, and I just wanted a little bit to look sort of like a sort of dappled light almost coming through the trees. I didn't really feel like I wanted too much more on this page, but I did want some focal points. So I'm using these images from the Maremi Small Art collage book, the Autumn Stories, and I cut them out and mounted them onto some thin white card just because I wanted them to be more of a solid sort of element to the page. I also didn't really want to be messing about with my matte medium on top of the distress ink, because of all the mediums that I use, I find distress ink is the one that is most likely to sort of move with that matte medium. I wanted to add a little bit of highlighting, so I've got my gel pen and I did quite sketchy, ragged lines onto these. So I've got a few leaves, a couple which I wanted to put underneath where my sort of leaf fairy was, and then a few that would wanted to see sort of falling down from the trees. But I felt that T was looking a little bit lost against that background, so I wanted to put something just to sort of separate him. And I know I do use thread quite a lot. I do use black though, so I thought because I had that sort of light coming through with the stenciling, that white thread would look nice. And I usually just lay it down and then I stick my other elements on with the glue. Now this glue is Pinflair Glue Gel, and it gives a really good stick once it's stuck. It takes a little while to dry, but once it's dried, it's really dried. So I put the leaf down first for him to be standing on, because I didn't want him to be floating, but I didn't want to be putting any shadowing in with a pencil today. I felt like I just wanted him to be on an element. And I'd also cut out this mushroom just because I felt he needed something else with him. And then I'm just adding on one of the other leaves just to sort of create a little scene. And then the other three leaves I just wanted to be sort of falling. And this was probably the most tricky part of the whole thing, of deciding how I wanted my leaves to look. I never know which way round your leaves should be falling, but I suppose they fall all sorts of ways, don't they? Really, they don't fall in a specific way. So I just eventually decided how they were going to go on the page. Now this is one of the Tim Holtz Ideaology stickers. It's the label stickers, and this particular selection is called Thoughts. And I saw this one that said turn the page, and I thought that was very, very apt for autumn, because it does sort of feel like it is a time when the seasons turn the page and people sort of can tend to turn the page. Now, I knew there was something missing, and so I decided I had to have a few white splatters. So I did cover his face up and then just popped a few on, not too many, just a few, just to brighten it up a bit more. And here is the finished page. So thank you ever so much for watching today, and a big thank you and shout out to my members whose names you will see at the end of this video. If you have enjoyed the video, do please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed, it would be fabulous if you could do that as well. And until the next time, bye bye.